3 million pages of evidence, thousands of unsealed flight logs, millions of data points, names, themes, and timelines connected. You are listening to the Epstein Files, the world's first AI-native investigation into the case that traditional journalism simply could not handle.
Welcome back to the Epstein Files. Last time, we walked through flight logs and tested what the records could actually prove without speculation. Today, we are examining the Black Book and mapping what the documents show about actors, timeline, decisions, and institutional response. As always, every document and source we reference is available at epsteinfiles.fm. So the first record is a contact book containing approximately 1,500 names and numbers, which former Epstein house manager Alfredo Rodriguez removed from the Palm Beach estate in 2005.
It is the primary artifact. But before we even open the cover to, look at the names, we have to establish the forensic context of the object itself.
Okay.
We are looking at the affidavit of Alfredo Rodriguez and the Epstein estate documents, which were released by the House Committee on Oversight and Reform on September 8, 2025. This isn't a digital database or some kind of cloud backup.
Right. This is an old school physical thing.
The physical bound volume Rolodex-style compilation that was physically located in the Palm Beach property. It's an object with a history.
And the chain of custody here is critical, isn't it? Because that establishes the timeline for everything we're about to discuss.
It's everything. Rodriguez takes this book in 2005. That date is the anchor.
So why did he take it? I mean, what does the affidavit say?
According to the Rodriguez affidavit, he removed the book along with other items when he left the estate. It was a, let's say, contentious departure. He knew its value, and his action gives us a hard forensic cutoff.
A cutoff, meaning?
Meaning the entries in this specific book represent the network as it existed prior to 2006. It is a snapshot of the operation before the first major criminal prosecution in Florida.
So it's a picture of the machine at its peak.
Exactly. It documents the network's operational status circa 2004 and 2005. It's the network in its purest, most confident form.
That distinction really matters because networks evolve, they change.
Yeah.
If you look at a contact list from 2004 versus one from, say, 2019, the actors are completely different.
They have to be.
So this book is a historical document of this, let's call the golden era of the operation, before the legal system forced them to adapt, to hide, to change their methods.
It captures the impunity. Now, for years, the public only had access to a leaked, a very redacted version of this book. It was grainy, parts were illegible, pages were missing. It was like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces.
But that changed.
It changed completely. On September 16th, 2025, the estate released what they called version 2.
That's the Epstein Black Book version 2.
Right. And the difference is just, it's significant. The 2025 release allows us to conduct a full audit of the sheer volume of data. We're dealing with approximately 1,500 names.
1,500. That's a huge number for a personal contact book.
It is. And when you look at the categorization within the Book of Black Ghosts and Reconstruction, which overlays these entries against known timelines, you see this isn't just a little black book of social contacts.
Yeah, it's something else.
It is an infrastructure map.
Let's break down that infrastructure. Because when people hear Black Book, they think of celebrities. They immediately start looking for the famous names. But the documents show a much more functional list.
The celebrity component is the surface layer. It attracts all the attention, all the headlines, but underneath, the book is categorized into distinct operational spheres.
Okay, like what?
First, we have the residential entries. These identify specific properties in New York, Palm Beach, New Mexico, and Paris. But they aren't just addresses.
And more than that.
So much more. These are command nodes.
Command nodes. In what sense?
In a logistical sense. The book lists the property managers, the security codes, the direct lines to the staff quarters. It shows that Epstein wasn't just visiting these places, he was actively managing them as a synchronized portfolio of properties. The book acts as a dashboard for maintaining the physical footprint of the entire operation.
The global operation, really.
Absolutely. Then you have the second category. The professional contacts. This is the influence layer. The financial sector, academia, legal counsel.
The people who make things happen.
The people who open doors and solve problems. You see the entries for major banks, hedge funds, university departments. This is the machinery of power.
But the third category is the one that I think is the most revealing. about the day-to-day reality of this operation.
The service providers.
The mundane entries.
Exactly. Maintenance staff, massage therapists, utility services, caterers, limo drivers. The Epstein Black Book version 2 places these high-level contacts right alongside the people who fixed the air conditioning.
And that's not normal.
It's not. It signals that the network was totally integrated.
Yeah.
The service providers were part of the same directory as heads of state. There's no separation.
What does that integration tell you forensically? What's the takeaway from that?
It documents an open, secret environment. It proves it. These 1,500 names represent a functioning ecosystem, not some kind of secret society. You don't list your co-conspirators in the same font as your plumber unless the conspiracy has become routine.
It's banal.
It's utterly banal. If you are hiding your activities, you keep the illegal distinct from the domestic. You compartmentalize. Here, they are merged. They're on the same page.
And the Book of Black source, that OSINT project, it suggests this serves as a snapshot of the network's status.
It functions as a map of access. If you look at the Book of Black Epstein Network Files, 1991-2025 edition, the analysis overlays the book entries with the timeline of Epstein's movements. The book proves that by 2005, the network had matured into a global operation with, and this is key, with redundancy.
Explain the redundancy.
If one contact wasn't available, there were 5 others in the same sector listed on the same page. If a specific lawyer was unreachable, there were 3 others ready to go. If a pilot was grounded, there were backups.
So it was resilient.
The sheer volume of names, 1,500, shows that the operation was designed to be resilient. It wasn't dependent on a single point of failure, other than, of course, Epstein himself.
I want to move to the physical markings in the book. This isn't a clean document. When you look at the scans from what's called JESLBB, or the Little Black Book, specific names are circled. This has been a subject of intense speculation for years.
This is one of the key forensic questions. Throughout the physical copy, you see these circles. The question is, what differentiates a circled name from a standard entry? What does a circle mean?
So to figure that out, we have to cross-reference this with other data.
Exactly. We have to cross-reference it with the Epstein flight logs Lolita Express.
The prevailing theory online, the one you always hear, is that a circled name indicates a frequent flyer or a core co-conspirator, the inner circle.
That's the assumption, but the data presents a clear discrepancy. When we compare the circled names against the frequency of appearance in the flight logs, the correlation just isn't 1-to-1.
It's not that simple.
Not at all. There are circled names that are, yes, active travelers and financial associates. That part is true. However, there are also names that are circled who do not appear in the flight logs at all.
And what about the other way around?
Right, and this is the critical part. There are frequent flyers, people who are on that plane all the time, who are not circled.
Give us a specific example of that discrepancy. It's important to be concrete here.
Jean-Luc Brunel. He is a central figure in the Epstein case documents, frequently in the logs, heavily involved in the logistics and recruitment. A top lieutenant, by all accounts.
If the circles indicated the inner circle, Brunel would be circled in red ink 3 times over.
Precisely. His absence from the circled status in certain iterations of the book suggests the circles might not indicate importance in the criminal sense, but perhaps utility or current priority at the time the book was being used.
Like a to-do list. Call these people this week.
Possibly. Or a list of numbers that had recently changed, or people who needed to be contacted for a specific upcoming event. We cannot definitively map circle to guilty.
We can't prove that.
We can't. We can only map circle to administrative focus. It's a functional marking, not a moral one.
There's also the structural segregation in the book itself that is much darker. The massages section.
This is a distinct forensic finding. You can see it in the Epstein case documents from case 18-2868 and in the JESLBB scans. There are pages specifically listing numbers under headers like massage or similar coded language.
And these are kept separate.
They are physically separated from the main alphabetical contacts.
Which implies a separation of church and state, so to speak.
It documents an awareness of different operational spheres. You have the social and business contacts, the 1,500 names we just discussed, and then you have the service and recruitment contacts.
The 2 halves of the operation.
The book itself is structured to keep these worlds adjacent but distinct. The separation proves that the user of the book, whether it was Epstein or his staff, maintained a kind of firewall between the public network and the private trafficking operation, even though they were contained in the same physical binder.
It's compartmentalization within a single document.
Exactly. And that speaks to the management style. The massage numbers were likely accessed with a different frequency and for a very different purpose than the alphabetical listings.
So it turns the book into a kind of dual-use tool.
It does. It's a directory for business and a database for abuse.
Let's talk about the people running that binder, the people who made the whole machine run. We mentioned the service providers, but the estate documents and the Book of Black allow us to map the entire staff hierarchy.
Right, we have to look at the administrative layer. The book contains entries for pilots, house managers like Rodriguez, and various assistants. And this creates an accountability gap that is often overlooked in the bigger narrative.
How so? What's the gap?
The sheer presence of extensive staff numbers indicates a massive operational footprint. The document proves that maintaining the properties, the logistics, the planes, it required dozens of employees. We see numbers for housekeepers, groundskeepers, aviation mechanics.
It takes a village.
It really does. And institutional behavior analysis tells us that you cannot run an operation of this scale with this many employees without the activity becoming normalized.
It becomes just the job.
It becomes the wallpaper. If you have pilots, maids, and gardeners all listed in the central directory, it means they were integrated into the daily flow of the house. They saw the guests. They saw the victims. They knew who was coming and going.
It effectively proves the open secret nature of the operation. There's no other way to interpret it.
Precisely. The Book of Black categorization shows that the logistical support was just as organized as the financial support. The staff weren't hidden away. They were part of the infrastructure. This suggests that the silence wasn't accidental. It was either enforced or it was bought.
There is another document that was released by the House Committee on Oversight and Reform. It's titled The First 50 Years, the Birthday Book.
This provides a crucial cross-reference, a very useful one. We have the Black Book, which is a functional directory of contacts. And then we have the Birthday Book, which documents the social and celebratory contacts who attended Epstein's 50th birthday.
So we can see who was just a business contact and who was actually in the inner social circle.
It's a Venn diagram. You have to look for pattern recognition. Who appears in both books? Who appears only in the social ledger, the Birthday Book?
And what does that tell you?
It differentiates between use and status.
Use versus status.
The Black Book might list a banker because Epstein needed liquidity. That's use. The Birthday Book lists the people he wanted to be seen with, the people who showed up to celebrate him. That's status.
So if a name is in the Black Book but not the Birthday Book,
they were likely a resource to be exploited, not a peer to be celebrated. It helps you map the inner circle versus the transactional periphery.
Okay, moving on to what we call the negative space. Who is missing from the book? This is where a lot of the online discussion gets very heated, especially about specific political figures.
And this is where we have to rely strictly on the documents. We have the anonymous complaint found in the Epstein case documents, and then we have the cross-reference with the flight logs. The complaint source explicitly argues that Donald Trump is not listed in the Little Black Book and was not part of the criminal investigation.
But, and this is important, we have to check that claim against the other records, because the public narrative is often confused on this point.
That's right. You have to be precise about which document you're talking about. When we cross-reference with the Epstein flight logs, we see names like Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Prince Andrew. The logs absolutely record Trump flying on the aircraft. That is a documented fact.
So he is in the logs.
Yes. But regarding the Black Book itself, the contact directory, the complaint source disputes his presence in that specific document.
So he's in the travel records, but the claim is his contact details are not in the primary book in the same way as others.
That is the documented discrepancy. We have to report strictly on the record. The flight logs record Trump on specific dates. The Black Book contains numbers and addresses for 1,500 other people. But the complaint highlights his absence from the book as a defense argument.
And what about Clinton?
Clinton appears in both. He's in the flight logs and he's in the Black Book. The records show a clear discrepancy in how these two individuals are documented within the network's artifacts.
Clinton's integration appears deeper than on paper.
It appears to be both logistical, meaning travel, and communicative, meaning he's in the contact book.
But there's a third document type that complicates all of this. The message pads.
Yes, these are found in the Epstein case documents under the file for phone messages. We have scans of these little message slips. One explicitly reads Mr. JF, others reference Fergie, and there are message slips for Trump.
So even if someone isn't in the bound book, they could be in the message pads.
Exactly. The message pads represent the transient contactless people calling in, leaving messages, active communication that may not have been permanently recorded in the bound Rolodex.
It represents a different type of data point. It's about activity versus status.
That's a perfect way to put it. The Black Book is status. The message pads are activity. An entry in the message pad means an active solicitation of contact from the caller. It says, "Call me back." An entry in the Black Book means the ability for Epstein to reach out. They imply very different directions of power.
I want to shift now to the 2025 disclosures. This is where the timeline becomes so important for you, the listener, to understand. We are looking at documents that were only released about a year ago.
Specifically, the letter from Attorney General Bondi to FBI Director Patel, and it's dated February 27, 2025. This document, it fundamentally changes our understanding of the entire evidentiary record.
In this letter, AG Bondi is demanding files. She's not asking politely.
No. She is demanding thousands of pages from the FBI New York field office. The letter documents that the FBI initially provided only approximately 200 pages to Main Justice.
200 pages out of a case this big.
Just 200 pages. And those 200 pages consisted primarily of the flight logs and the contact book we've just been discussing.
So the Black Book and the flight logs were the approved narrative. That was the story the FBI was willing to share.
That is the institutional response documented right here in this letter. It proves there was a bureaucratic decision to sequester specific files. The FBI's New York field office held a massive cache of evidence, thousands of pages, that were withheld from the initial disclosures to the Department of Justice itself.
It proves that for 2 decades, the public record was artificially limited. We were all arguing about a tiny fraction of the evidence.
It proves the Black Book was the tip of the iceberg. The Bondi letter explicitly references audio and video recordings and materials related to clients. This suggests that the Black Book wasn't just a list of numbers. It was likely the index for a much larger archive of surveillance and documentation.
An index.
Yes. The book lists the targets. The withheld tapes likely recorded the compromise.
This is a critical point. So the book tells you who, the missing evidence tells you what.
And by releasing the book but holding the tapes, the institution managed the fallout. They revealed the connections, which were deniable, but they concealed the crimes, which were not.
Alongside this, we have the Book of Black OSINT compilation, the 2025 edition. This helps us make sense of the financial data in the book.
It does. The Book of Black aggregates shell company pathways and what it calls suppressed timeline fragments. When we see a company or an LLC listed in Epstein's Black Book, we can use the Book of Black to find the registration details to find out who's really behind it.
It connects the dots.
It maps the financial infrastructure. If the Black Book lists a person, the Book of Black often identifies the LLC or the shell company associated with them. This confirms that the entries in the book weren't just for phone calls. They were nodes in a financial network. It allows you to see the flow of money supporting the names in the book.
So a name in the book might not just be a social contact. It could be a financial conduit.
Exactly. The book is a map of liquidity just as much as it is a map of society.
Let's look at the foreign links. We have the Ehud Barak Emails Leak Archive, which covers 2007 to 2016.
Right. This archive contains correspondence involving the former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. When we cross-reference names and dates in these emails with the Epstein timeline, we see a clear alignment.
And we have to be extremely careful here not to speculate on operations.
We must be precise. The email archive contains correspondence involving specific topics and persons that align with entries in the Black Book. The Book of Black and the Ehud Barak emails show a clear pattern of communication. However, the Black Book itself does not contain explicit documentation of intelligence operations.
It lists the name. It lists the number. It doesn't list agent.
Correct. We also have the Whitney Webb archives.
No.
She's done extensive work on the mega group and intelligence contexts. We use these texts strictly as a guide to identify specific entities that appear in the Black Book.
How does that work structurally? How do you use that?
For example, if the Book of Black and Webb's research both identify a specific tech firm or a mega group member, and then we find that entry in the Black Book, the business records confirm the link. We can say, the book connects person A to company B. That's a fact.
But what about the bigger claims? The claims of blackmail systems or coercion architecture?
We don't have documentation for that in the book itself. We just don't. While that intelligence framing is strongly suggested by secondary sources like Webb, and it's referenced in the Book of Black metadata, the primary contacts book is a directory. It lists names and numbers. It does not list the reason for the contact.
So you can't infer blackmail just from a phone number.
You can't. We can only prove access. That is what the book proves.
Okay, so synthesizing all of this, we have the artifact, the physical book. We have the 1,500 names. We have the circles.
The forensic picture is this. The Black Book is not a list of conspirators. That's the wrong way to look at it. It is a map of access. It proves Epstein had direct telephonic access to the highest echelons of specific sectors: science, academia, royalty, and finance. He could pick up the phone and reach these people.
And the circled names and message pads give us the activity layer on top of that map.
They provide the variable of activity: who is calling in and who is being prioritized for an outbound call. But the most significant finding from the 2025 documents, the Bondi letter and the estate release, is that the public record was managed. It was curated.
It was incomplete by design.
Yes. The FBI held files that were not part of the initial Black Book narrative. For 20 years, we have been looking at the map, but the state held the territory.
We have the names, we have the circles, we have the flight log correlations, but we still have massive unknowns.
The content of the thousands of cages referenced in the Bondi letter remains the variable. It's the ghost in the machine. We know they exist. We know they were withheld. The meaning of specific coded annotations in the book remains unverified. We have the map, but we are still missing the legend for some of the most critical symbols.
Next time. Victim recruitment.
You have just heard an analysis of the official record. Every claim, name, and date mentioned in this episode is backed by primary source documents. You can view the original files for yourself at epsteinfiles.fm. If you value this data-first approach to journalism, please leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening right now. It helps keep this investigation visible. We'll see you in the next file.